Speaking of recovery, California announced that it's opening we're in phase 3 on Friday. So we record the show on Sunday. It was announced on last Friday that next Friday we're going to open for phase 3. So this is the in my opinion, phase 3 is like a more dangerous phase, let's say, because it's like hair salons and gyms and kind of places where people are in
tattoo parlors, like basically
tattoo parlors,
massage parlors, things like that. Where
right, close proximity, potentially bodily fluids being exchanged in some of these spaces, as gross as it sounds. So, how you feeling about that, man? Is the timing right? Are we doing this right now? And also, how is it affecting your business?
All right, so if I follow the timeline in my head, I think we got the first order here in California sometime in like mid-March, I think, right? Like
we were early, right? We were like March 11, 12,
something like that. I distinctly remember the NBA being like, we're gonna put a freeze on everything, you know.
Everyone remembers it through a sports lens, right? Like, man, I had tickets and I couldn't go.
So, and I remember because I was watching TV. Like I had the computer out and I had the ESPN on,
Rudy
and all of a sudden it's like the game's not starting. And I'm like, what's going on?
Thanks, Rudy, if you're listening. Thanks. I know you're not, but
kind of that moment is etched in stone, right? So I remember that being put to a stop, and then the other sports league kind of followed, the NHL, and baseball never even started, things like that. So and then there was the designation of essential, not essential, all that stuff. So my business definitely saw, especially on the home selling side, saw a slowdown as people took stock of what was happening. There was that run on toilet paper that I'm sure a lot of people remember. There was a run on certain foods. So, you'd go to the grocery store, you wouldn't find it. So there was all that kind of happening at the same time. That was very chaotic, and everybody's attention was focused on that. I had a couple of listings that we were working with, and we just didn't see too much action as a result of
everyone's just kind of reeling. They didn't know.
Yeah, totally. Well, it was so new, right? It was like you're seeing deaths pile up, like more infections, more death, more, and everybody's like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? So, but as things kind of calmed down a little bit into like mid-April and into May, things began to normalize a little bit. People didn't see a giant crash in real estate as they were anticipating. I think a lot of people thought that this was a repeat of 08.
Yeah, like, I know the formula. We're gonna buy houses on the cheap now. So let's
exactly. And the reality is that didn't happen. The lack of inventory and the cheap money have maintained prices fairly steady, kind of plateauing, not necessarily spiking, but definitely not dropping. And since then, I don't want to say it's become business as usual, because there's a lot of new protocols and procedures that we have to follow with regards to showing homes and the type of information that's required before you even step foot inside a home.
Sure.
But as a business, the business kept moving. So now to your direct question, I think this is only going to help things, because at the end of the day, our economy only moves if people move, if people are working, if people are actively participating in that economy, right? It doesn't help us to have just people holding on to their money, because the reality is this thing is like a big wheel that needs to move. And once you take out a key cog of that, well, the thing doesn't work as efficiently as before.
Right.
Think of capitalism what you will. People need an ability to earn income to be able to fund their finances, right? Whatever financial obligations they have.
Just give some security, right? I mean, it's like, what's going to happen next if we can't earn money? How do we forecast what the next 6 months, year? Like a home is a big purchase, so
totally.
It's not like buying a loaf of bread where you don't really have a emotional attachment to it, and it's a pretty cheap good. It's like, okay, we have to be in the right position, and we have to know we're going to stay in that position. For what they say, home buying, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, like the first 2 years are the toughest, because you have to figure out what that footprint of expense looks like in your everyday life when you're not used to it. So I can only imagine if 50% of us are unclear about our economic circumstances, it's gonna definitely stop some movement where there would have been movement.
And not just that too. Some folks had their time cut a little bit. Some folks were laid off completely. So there's still a lot of moving pieces here as far as what the ultimate outcome is going to be. But in the immediate future, I see it as kind of a good thing. You have to allow people the opportunity to earn a living. You have to allow folks the chance to go to work.
But do you think we're ready, like as a state? Do you think we're ready for this? Does this seem too early? Like, I feel like we were told by the government fairly early on, like, give it to California. They were kind of ahead of the curve. And I think that's why a lot of us are a lot healthier than maybe we would have been. But they told us to go inside. Like, imagine this metaphor. Go inside, it's raining, right?
Yeah.
It's still raining. It's months later, but it's still raining.
Still raining.
We're tired of being in the house, but now they tell us, oh, go ahead and go back out. And we're like, okay, cool. We would love to, but guess what? It's still raining. So, you know, what changed?
But I see it more like, okay, so make sure you bring your umbrella. Make sure you take your boots, you know, so that your shoes don't get wet. If you have a poncho, make sure you utilize that. So the idea,
I don't want to wear a poncho.
Right. Well,
it's
exactly.
my right not to wear a poncho.
Well, that's, you know, that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day is we have a better understanding of how this virus works, right? Not a great understanding, but a little bit better. Going back to our quote, when you know better, you do better, right?
We know slightly better than we did in March.
so for example, like the handshakes are basically out. You know, people aren't shaking hands anymore. No more hugs, things like that. Especially, I mean, in a business setting, you usually see, you know, you meet somebody at happy hour, you give somebody a hug, or you shake their hand, something like that.
It's a business transaction in a way, a handshake.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So I think obviously that's now kind of, for the time being, we're going to put a pause to that. You have your
elbow bumping, right? Or
people are doing the shoe bumping. Like the shoe bumping. Yeah, you're doing all kinds of things. You have your 6 feet of distance now that you know is a good distance, that if you try to maintain that on the regular, well, there's a better chance of you protecting yourself. You have the mask, which whatever little protection it might offer, it offers you that. And then there's also the hygiene portion of the program, which is, you know, make sure that you keep washing your hands, make sure that you keep your hands away from your face as much as possible.
And also, if you have a fever, sit your ass down, right? Like, you know, I've been in so many situations where somebody's like, oh, I'm sick, but, you know, I got to come to work, so I got to get stuff done. I'm like, no, you don't, man. Yeah. Because you now, like forever, now and forever, we're going to be like, because you could kill somebody if you're sick. Like, you know, and unless we have a vaccine and we're like sure that this is a done deal, which could be a very long time. Like, no, just stay home, man. Like, it's really not worth it.
Well, speaking of which, so we went to, I went out to a restaurant for the first time in a long time, in a couple months. And yeah, right, exciting. Ooh. And but they took our temperature, which is kind of weird, right?
Hey.
You're not used to that.
You're like, what's your temperature, bro?
Like, yeah. So it's like, so I had to wear the mask. Had to wear the mask inside the restaurant. They took our temperature before we went in. We had to like wash our hands with like that little hand sanitizer. And then when we actually got to the table, they had actually made like these makeshift plexiglass enclosures.
So you went to like a hardcore ass.
It was like a little, it was a little, you know, different. So I think it's gonna take a little getting used to. I'm hoping, like part of me, the hopeful part of me is eager to see a vaccine or something to that effect come out, some way of treating this, so that we can begin to go back to, I don't want to say go back to the way that it was, because I don't think there's an opportunity to go that, but whatever the new thing that we're creating now is, if it can sort of mirror, I don't think hugs should go away personally, right? I don't think handshakes should go away. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know, right? Maybe as an overall for the betterment of everybody, it's just a practice that is antiquated and should go away. But I think that human connection is still, until we go full cyborg, right? until we go full like, okay, RoboCop, people still are people, and there's a humanness to everything that you can't just simply snap your fingers and it goes away. Like people like to. That's why, you know, when you do the absolute worst thing that you can, they isolate you, right? They put you in your own little cell by yourself, because
see what we did. We did the worst thing we could.
Right.
Now we're isolated.
But that's human contact, human touch. That's a real important thing. And I think you can't just dismiss that and all of a sudden, to your point, make it go away. And I think it has to evolve, whatever it is. And until we are fully robots, there's that human component that I don't think goes away. I think
I'm not going robot. You can't make me.
You can't make. Yeah,
I do think though. It's not so bad. I do think though, to your point, a hug should be at a premium, right? I think we're getting a little liberal with our hugs, and maybe now this is like a time to say, okay, you know what? Let's hug when it's appropriate to hug, but we're not just going, you know, we're not just watering down the hug market with, you know, gratuitous hugs. So I think handshakes will always be a thing because it's historical. There's been historical moments founded on handshakes. And, you know, we could wash our hands, you know, hug is kind of a different level. You're getting near people's faces and all that. But, you know, I've shaken some hands recently, and you just go wash your hands, or you put hands. I actually had a buddy pull up to my house with a bottle of hand sanitizer in one hand, and he was like, "Squirt, squirt," and then we shook hands. It was like a drive-by handshake. It was kind of intense. I was like, "Wow, you're very prepared for this moment."
I have a question though, with regards to your business, for example. Like your business was severely affected by this, right? You're in the live event space, so it's like no concerts. Like for example, like right before this all hit in February, a group of friends of ours, we went and saw a comedy show. Like, you know, so no comedy shows, no concerts, no movies, no nothing where we congregate as a group. And I think people are missing that a lot. How do you see your space adapting to sort of the new regulations with regards to phase 3? And do you see your business all of a sudden being able to gain some normalcy, or is it something where until we have a vaccine, it's just not on the cards?
Yeah, so concerts, conferences, and live sports with fans per se, is in phase 4, right? So phase 4 is going to be watching with their eyes peeled on phase 3 reopening to say, okay, are we screwing this up? Do we go early? Are we going to see a spike of infections? Because if we can't even get through phase 3 smoothly, then phase 4 is going to be set back even further. So I think right now, people in the event world are like sitting there going, oh my God, we're like, yeah, in theory, phase 4 is right around the corner because it's a logical step behind 3. But, you know, I think we got to see how phase 3 goes as a nation, right? There's only a couple states out there that are into their phase 3, if you will. And, you know, they're doing okay right now. We haven't seen any massive issues, some minor ones. But as far as the event business goes, you know, I started my business like a month before, I really pushed off like a month before the pandemic. And in that month, it was more of a proof of concept. It was more of a business planning. I wasn't even really approaching clients about it, just kind of talking to people and saying, you know, I'm offering this service, small business consulting, sales development. You know, I could work on project management for you, make your operation efficient, increase sales, bring profit to the bottom line. That's kind of my strength within the industry. And everyone was like, well, we got this COVID thing going on right now. Let's see what happens there. But nothing was shut down yet, right? So then fast forward a month, basically everything stops immediately in mid-March, and companies are laying off 85% of their workers. And I'm just in this situation where I'm like, I don't think this is going to be back for a while. I still have a lot of loyalty and a lot of faith in the event business. I think they'll be back and better than ever, probably sooner than we even think. And I'll talk in a little bit about how things are evolving and kind of what the plan is to stand that back up when phase 4 reopens. But I kind of had to pivot and take on some clients, and I actually worked on some organic relationships with clients that aren't in the event industry. And I said, you know what, I can do the same thing for an automotive shop, or I can do the same thing for a company in the energy space, which is technically deemed quote unquote essential. Not, you know, I hate using that phrase, but I mean, right. it's what we use. One of the blessed companies that is allowed to operate during the COVID times is kind of the long form of saying an essential business, but because they're contractors, they can work, right? You wreck your car, you need it fixed, so auto shops are open.
Exactly.
If the power in your house goes out, you need a backup generator, you need an electrician, so those type of companies are open. So I kind of approached my network of business owners and entrepreneurs, and I said, I am an event consultant, but events are not really moving right now, and certainly no one wants to invest in building their business when they don't even know if their business is going to survive tomorrow.
Is it viable? Right, exactly.
Right. It's like, can we even weather this storm? Do we have enough cash flow or capital or resources to get to November or later before this thing turns back on? We still don't know the answer to that. Some of the companies still don't know the answer to that. So long story short, I had to diversify out, which I believe will help my business greatly in the end, because now I have testimonials from several different industries that said, hey, Joe really came in and he helped us stand up this vertical, this sales program that we really wanted to do, but we didn't have time to do. He came in and he created it. He created a script. He actually showed that there's hundreds of thousands of dollars out there to be spent, and he locked in the first series of clients, and then he taught us how to perform it. Or he came in and automated some process that was very costly for us. So what I've learned about myself is it really doesn't matter what industry I go in, which is a huge tool for me to use later. But I really want to get back to working with my event partners. And so we're seeing some traction now where people are planning like massive drive-in festivals are becoming a thing. It's kind of sweeping through the Midwest and out to California now. Obviously, some of these companies have picked up and kind of evolved anyway. Like they went from a staging company to a temporary hospital testing center company, where they're like from the ground up, instead of building a festival like Coachella, right? That's like everyone knows Coachella. It's basically a polo field. It's an open space that these companies all come in and they create a massive festival, and it has worldwide recognition. those type of companies are like, well, we don't have any of those to produce, so let's go stand up a hospital in the middle of a parking lot, or let's go build a hand wash station in the middle of a metropolitan area. So a lot of companies in the staging and in the kind of lighting truss business have pivoted wisely to accommodate for those kind of necessary things that we all need right now. And then others are just kind of hanging out and staying put and laying people off, and just kind of waiting for things to get going. And I can't judge them either, because, you know, they're trying to protect their families, and, you know, there's absolutely no cash flow in the business. A huge problem, and I've helped some clients with this, is people aren't paying their bills either. So if you had a festival last year right. and they still owe you, and they were like, oh, we're going to pay you when we have the next one. Well, guess what? That cash flow is not there.
Like, hey, no, I got to flip this.
Exactly. I'm going to pawn the ring, and then I'm going to gamble the money, and then if I win, I'm going to pay you.
Oh, man, there's no sport. So wait, I got to find something else to bet on in order to get your money to pay you back.
So they're, and some of these companies don't have the best contracts. It's just the nature of it, right? They're production specialists. They're not lawyers. They're not finance people. So they have kind of, you know, their contracts aren't bulletproof. And so that's another service I offer. But you know, I've been able to help a few of them recover from positions where people owed them a ton of money. And then it's like, well, are you going to negotiate this down to something? Are you going to hold them to it? Are you going to leverage it against something next year? You know, get in those situations where people, it's another one of those difficult conversations. Not everyone wants to have that conversation. It's a tough world to navigate. I'm totally comfortable walking into those rooms and throwing the cards out on the table and saying, look, we have a bad situation. We could certainly do better. Let's get to a point where we can agree on something. So a lot going on in and around the event space, but certainly there's you know, companies are having to shut down. Companies are having to defer an entire year of revenue into next year. Like hotels is another industry that I serve and that I've worked in, and they got
hammered.
You know, 90%.
Are you gonna tell me you work with Carnival as well, cruise lines too?
every
business that got. Are you in the airline? Any business that got?
I had 7 jobs when I was 12 years old. 7 jobs.
Let me ask you a question real quick with regards to on the personal side. So, sure. How do you feel when you head out into the public and you have to, like, you know, put on your poncho and your boots and the hat and all that?
And it's still raining.
Yeah, and it's still raining. Like, do you feel comfortable heading out? Like, for me, still the one place that I'm kind of like is the grocery store. The grocery store is kind of like.
Right, it's like the most dangerous place we go. It's the like grocery store, or like Walmart, Lowe's, those type of places Target, that have always been open, by the way. Deemed essential, always been open. To me, still, those are the most dangerous. I think those are more dangerous than a restaurant, to be honest. Because restaurants are adhering to the spacing, right? They have all these protocols, like you said. You had to go through the ringer just to eat out.
Just to get seated.
It's funny though, because it's all based on region, right? So I'm helping clients. I go all the way up to LA. I got a client in Burbank, all the way down to Carlsbad, and you just see different protocols everywhere you go. So in Temecula, people are wearing masks, but they're not necessarily distancing. Just by nature, right? In LA, everyone's like bulletproof strict because they have a lot of cases. And
I heard that they have, and it's layered, like the county, the city, and then the state.
So if you're in LA County and you're thinking, well, I'm going to visit a client, like, you better bring a mask, a backup mask, gloves, like, you better be ready to actual ponchos, like, you better have your stuff ready to go.
Your PPE is ready to go, right?
Right, but it's just different, right? Everyone, like San Diego, they're more laid back, you know, especially North County, they don't have a ton of cases out there, so you're seeing kind of like same thing. They're a little bit more lax, like Temecula. But do I feel safe? Yeah, I mean, I have a son at home that's special needs, so we're kind of in that. He's not necessarily immunocompromised, but we don't need him getting COVID, or we don't need him getting sick at all, on top of the other issues. So I'm very careful in general as a parent. So like for me and my wife, this is kind of like this is a little bit of a dream as far as from the germaphobe side of, like, if you're a germaphobe right now, you're winning, right? Because you're like, this is everything I always wanted. I never wanted people to shake hands with me. Right. I always wanted everything on my dish perfectly separated. I never wanted to sit in a crowded space, you know? So, and that's kind of the way we already were a little bit because of our son, but obviously you don't want to be disrespectful. Like, if you're doing the tough part is, like, if you're doing a deal with a big client and you're just meeting them for the first time, in the back of your mind, there's this social anxiety of like, well, what are we going to do when we get to that point where we have a deal? Because typically we would shake hands, we would kind of codify the deal somehow physically, and you're
That's
just
not on the table anymore.
And you're like, I don't know if he or she wants to shake hands. I don't know if this is what are the protocols of the person sitting across from me. So that's something that we're going to be playing with for a long time. And it does increase people's social anxiety of like, not only how do I feel about this, because some people are like laissez-faire, like let's just go out and hug and kiss and lick each other's faces or whatever they're doing. but other people are like very anxious and you know, in their bubble, and maybe they were like that already, and this is just like an even bigger reason to be that way. So it's hard. That's the hard part, right? Is like, where do I stand? Where does the other person stand? How do we kind of like go in and softly, and are we doing this? Like, I don't know. It's going to be a tough thing for a while trying to figure that out. For sure.
Have you been out to a restaurant or anything like that lately?
Yeah, we try to support. So we've been ordering from local businesses that we enjoy. Like we got our top 5 kind of written up on the board, and we've been trying to keep, you know, at least once every week or 2, we'll order from them. But now that things are starting to reopen, I think we've eaten out probably like 2 or 3 times. Same, just businesses that we really want to keep open. And because we love them, right? Not selfishly, we want to keep them open,
right?
And I'd say it's been nice. I mean, like I said, we went up to Lake Arrowhead for a visit to a business that we like there, and everything was nice. It was separated perfectly. Everyone working was wearing masks. So, like I said, you feel safe when you're dining out. But like I said before, I feel like the most dangerous place, like when the toilet paper and paper towel, you know, run was happening and people were in line around the corner at Sam's Club and Costco, it was like, this is more dangerous than half of the businesses that were quote unquote shut down by the government or by the governor. You know, I don't see why we can't go to a bookstore and buy a book, but we can stand in this line crammed in like sardines and eventually go into a store where we're banging off each other a little bit. But my question to you, because I know that like this is a delicate topic, but like I'm not going to ask you to choose one that's personal to you, but what's your favorite COVID conspiracy theory? And you don't have to hitch your wagon to it, but I'm just curious to see.
My favorite COVID conspiracy?
Yeah, like even if it's insane, right? Just like what conspiracy theories have you heard that you just like want to laugh at?
Well, I mean, the whole thing, right? The whole gambit of like, it's a hoax, it's not real. More people get killed by the flu than by COVID. You know, at the end of the day, here's the thing. I see everybody's reaction to it because it was a new thing. And we don't really, like, number one, it's super contagious. Nobody can deny that, right? The fact that there's so many cases worldwide, it's kind of, you can't really go contra to that statement that it's highly contagious. Now, as to how many people it kills and who it predominantly kind of latches onto and takes down, that's kind of up for debate. So I don't even want to get into that. But the idea is that there is something out there. It's literally killing people, and we don't know what it is. So from the government perspective, I can definitely see why they took the steps that they did. I personally would have liked a much more robust, unified attack to this, right?
The federal approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, hey guys, as a country, we're facing this challenge, and as a result of that, we're going to tackle it as a country. And I feel that there was a little bit of lack of leadership there from the very, very top, because all of a sudden it's like, well, you guys are on your own, deal with it. And then all of a sudden we had the situation where states are competing with each other. You remember the big ventilator run, you know, that's all you heard about on the ventilators. We need more ventilators. You think that there were people out, you know, out doing laps around the hospital with
what do you do? You make pencil sharpeners? Well, now you're making ventilators.
Now you're making
ventilators.
We need them. Exactly.
What the hell does that have to do with pencil sharpeners?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I think it was something that caught people a little off guard, even though we had heard about it and had seen what was happening on the other side of the world. There was a lot of folks who felt like it could never get here, and it could never have the kind of effect that it did. But now, having sort of understanding a little bit more about it, I think there comes a time when we can't just be scared of it anymore, and we have to just, you know, be as cautious as we can, take the necessary precautions to protect ourselves, and slowly begin to reincorporate ourselves into some kind of normalness. I also don't think that being cooped up in your home in fear is a good thing either, right? It's not good for your mental health. It's definitely not good for your finances. And so I think it added on a level and a layer of anxiety there that really has affected some folks. I can definitely see down the road people having PTSD from everything going on right now, as with regards to especially the medical condition and the healthcare concern there as a result of COVID, because it's a very serious thing. It has definitely killed a lot of people. And by the way, we're not even halfway through the year. I don't know like what the total tally is going to be. It's going to be a big number by the time it's all said and done. Like, it's one of those things where even as we're, like you said, we're opening up and things are starting to become more normal, the fact remains that there's still up to like 110,000 folks that have passed away up to this point. And this really kind of ramped up in March. So, you know, and it's not going away. It's not although the news has been sort of hijacked by other things going on in the world. The reality is COVID's still around. It's still a real thing. And so now as to the conspiracy, I've heard everything from deep state wanted to start the new world order. And this was a great way to get everybody to hunker down and to bring the economy of the world to a stop and be able to introduce new parameters and this and that. So obviously my conspiracy antenna is up, but at the end of the day, I really do think this is more of a kind of every now and then something new pops up and it scares the crap out of us. And not having a real plan as to how to go about things, this haphazard thing was put together. And I think at this point, there's more of a general consensus of, okay, this is how we deal with it. This is what we suggest as a precautionary measure to take. And ultimately you are, you know, as an individual need to take some personal responsibility and do what's best for you. So what about you? Do you subscribe to any particular conspiracy? Bigfoot set this out for everybody.
Well, the 5G, the 5G
towers.
5G's
okay, I have heard the 5G one as well.
Started the meltdown, and then they turned the towers off, and then everyone was fine again. Now, the hard part for me is, like, you know, you go through emotions with these things where you're angry, where you're content, where, you know, you're going to ride a wave of emotions as this pandemic comes through. And when I get angry or upset about it, I don't know who I'm supposed to be angry or upset about. Like, there's really no target. So, and also I feel like judging people, no matter who they are, is difficult right now, because you're like, there's no baseline for this. There's no precedence in which to plan. Obviously, the government let us down in a variety of ways. And if they're willing to own that, then I'm willing to say, you know, it's okay. Like, what else can I do but move on? But the hard part is, like, when you get to that angry stage, like, what do I do with that? Do I try to compartmentalize it? Do I blow it off some other way? Who am I even mad at? Like, who could have prevented this from getting as bad as it is? So I think that's the tricky part, is like, maybe conspiracies are cathartic for people, because they can kind of put it in, well, it's the 5G towers fault, or it's China's fault, or whatever. Like, and so you go down those rabbit holes to kind of just get it off your chest and put it in a neat little box. But there's no neat little box to put it in. It's just it's everywhere, and nobody knew what the hell they were doing, and they, for the most part, probably still don't know what the hell they're doing. But at least we have some sort of plan now as to how to go into the next phase. And then maybe in the fall, guess what, we're gonna sit the bench again for a couple months. I don't know. But
I'm excited. Well, I'm excited, man. I like, again, going back to what we talked about, I see progress. People get frustrated when they don't see progress, when they don't understand why things are the way that they are. And so the fact that we are moving into a phase 3 gives me hope that, to your point, down the road is phase 4. And hopefully beyond that, normalcy, or whatever that new normal is, whatever the reality of what's on the other side of this. But I like the fact that we're moving in that direction. I definitely like the fact that people have now greater ability to be able to go out and work if they so choose. It's their decision, right? If they have the opportunity and the ability to go out there and work, then it's up to them to make that decision for themselves.